session to order. Before we even start with the pledge, I was going to just wish everybody a Happy New Year, since this is the first meeting of our year. And with that, start with the pledge.
Okay.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry to get you all confused.
Easily confused.
Okay, first item on our agenda is a proclamation for not bringing night off.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. O'Leary.
let me see. I move to proclaim March 12, 2015 to be North Reading Night Off and read the night off, and we'll read the proclamation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by Mr. Yule. Do you want to read the proclamation?
No, but I'd like to just talk a little bit about the genesis of it.
How about if I read it first and then we can talk about it?
Okay.
All right?
Read away.
Proclamation. Whereas North Reading Community Impact Team works to identify factors that have a negative impact on the quality of life for all community members, from our young children to our senior citizens, and to implement solutions that solve the underlying problems. Whereas the North Reading Community Impact Team is a partnership between the North Reading Police Department, Youth Services, Elder Services, School Department, Parks and Recreation, Fire Department, and the Board of Selectmen. Whereas North Reading is a busy, thriving town, but community impact team surveys show that time management and stress are key factor impacting North Reading families. Whereas studies show that children and teens and families who eat dinner together frequently have lower incidence of drug and alcohol use, and it is the goal of the North Reading Community Impact Team to support healthy relationships and strong communications within families. Now therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen of North Reading, Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim March 12, 2015 to be North Reading Night Off. We urge all town departments, committees, community organizations, sports leagues, and businesses with regularly scheduled events for students and families to suspend all activities beginning at 5 p.m. on March 12, 2015, so that all North Reading families, young and old, can unplug and slow down to spend more important time together, enjoying a meal, conversation, and unpressured family time. We signed by Robert J. Messeri, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Mrs. Bailey? Or?
We'll go together.
Good evening. Thanks for getting us on first in your agenda. I'm Marcy Bailey, and I come to you tonight as a member of the K-12 subcommittee of the Community Impact Team, and with me is Amy Lukowitz, who's, as you know, is Youth Service Director and also a member of our committee, and also Rita Mellon, who is part of our subcommittee as well. And I just wanted to take 2 or 3 minutes to give you background and have Amy chime in. We've had guest speakers the past 2 years, both on social media safety and on teen dating violence. And after those, we took surveys just to see how people liked the talk, and then also to see what other issues were pressing in the community. Both of those came back as time management and stress were key issues that concern families in North Reading. One night off on March 12th is not much, but it's a start. It's been done successfully in Needham, and we're modeling it on that effort. And we just encourage all town departments, which have been asked to participate, all committees, and after we're here tonight, we'll be visiting the school committee to get their sign-on too, to join us in pledging to take a night off. I'm sure that all of you gentlemen could use a night off as well. You go home, enjoy dinner with your wives and your families, and thaw out your feet after a long winter on the cold, hard floor, subfloor of this room. Also, as part of that, we are going to be visiting local restaurants and asking them to give discounts to families that night. It's not a fundraiser, but again, another way to facilitate and make it easier for families to enjoy dinner together, either by going out with their children who should not have homework that night, going out with their children for dinner, or ordering in if they choose not to cook, and if that helps them out. It also helps out the restaurant community in encouraging North Reading residents to patronize the restaurants. And then the last thing, and then I'll see if Amy wants to add anything. On March 4th, about 1 week before that, we're having a speaker in, John Madelman, who's the Youth Services Director in Needham and also a parenting expert, and he's going to speak on the secret life of the Massachusetts teenager. And I want to know what that is. I hope that everyone else does too, but he's going to talk about communication with your teens, how to talk to them, how to listen effectively, and just how to be there for them. And we've interviewed him at length, and he's going to be taking questions and answers, and it should be a great night. It's going to be at the high school. Pre-registration is not required, but it's encouraged, and the link to sign up is on the Community Impact Team website.
I could have used that 3 to 5 years ago.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you got to catch everyone at the right time.
Timing's everything.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
Just a couple of things regarding John Madelman visiting. We were very careful. We want to make sure that we are going to be providing this free for all families. There's no sign-up fee, so I just want to reiterate that. And would you like the one-page flyer for the National Night Off? Or National Night Out? Off.
Oh,
Very
We have it in
good.
our
We're
packets.
practicing our acronyms. If you can come up with a better, because we have National Night Off and we have North Reading Night Off.
National Night Out.
North.
We're all set.
Yeah, we had
Got
them.
it, very good.
Okay.
And just to let you know that 9 committees and departments have already committed to taking the night off.
Oh, good.
Very good.
It's great.
Thank both of you, or 3 of you, I guess, and all the hard work with the subcommittee of the COP.
It's my anniversary tonight, so it actually makes it easy for me now. I have no excuse.
Mr.
So
Chairman?
now you're gonna take your wife out.
That's a wonderful idea. I love it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Mr. Yule.
Yes. Will the town hall be closed in the evening for use?
If there's nobody,
It's Thursday night, so it all depends on.
And by the way, you should have done this on a Monday night. I would have appreciated that.
Sometimes the town would too. The safer when we don't meet.
But
Mr. Gilberto.
I believe that the group has spoken with the zoning board of appeals with regard to their schedule, and that's generally the only public meeting happening in the town hall on
Right.
Thursday evenings, and they will not be meeting that evening, from what I'm told.
Correct.
I hadn't intended to deny a request to use the
Okay.
town hall if one came in, but we'll certainly advise anyone who does apply for that evening that, make them aware that
strongly suggest, yeah.
there is a
Okay.
townwide event going on that night.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the board, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilberto, FY 2016 budget update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're passing over minutes.
Minutes will be
Just
taken up at
for
the
the
next
record.
meeting. Yep, it's going to be taken up at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So before you, in the Dropbox, for members who haven't had a chance to look, is a memorandum that I had indicated in the agenda notes I would be submitting relative to the fiscal year 2016 budget. And essentially, it's intended to provide the board and the community an update with regard to the fiscal year 2016 budget process and status. As was presented in October of last year, the departmental budget requests for next fiscal year were due to the finance director on December 5th, and the finance director and I have been meeting with department heads to discuss their proposals beginning at the beginning of this month, and it will continue throughout this month. Concurrently with that, the financial planning team has been reviewing revenue and expenditure projections for fiscal year 2016, as has been brought up throughout the course of the past couple of months. I wanted to communicate for the community and the board some of the factors that will potentially put pressure on the fiscal year 2016 budget as we go through this process. Some of the factors include uncertainty at the state level, which is most recently noted by a Massachusetts Taxpayers Foundation report that identifies a projected $750 million budget gap for the current fiscal year. The new state administration is in the process of examining the state's finances, and while state funding cuts for fiscal year 2015 have been limited to specific programs thus far, we need to continue to monitor the state's condition and actions closely. The state's fiscal year 2015 challenges may result in an impact to fiscal year 2016 state aid to cities and towns, so we need to continue to pay close attention as we have been since September and October. Additionally, continued long-term capital investment planning and needs may impact available funds for the operating budget. Capital Improvement Planning Committee and the Financial Planning Committee will continue to review those needs as well as available funds and funding mechanisms. It's a continuation of the work for the committees, both of those groups over the past few years. Thirdly, the need to establish a strategy to fund other post-employment benefits obligations has been identified by this board and discussed publicly, as well as a need to implement whatever strategy would come up with could potentially put pressure on the fiscal year 2016 budget. As has been widely discussed, the current obligation is $65 million, although it will be revalued this current calendar year, and that may change that obligation. Finally, medical care inflation is projected to be 7%, according to our health insurance consultant, for fiscal year 2016, plus an additional 2% for Affordable Care Act implementation. This market and regulatory-driven growth will have an impact on our annual health insurance expense, which is $5.45 million for this current fiscal year. In light of all the aforementioned factors, all options must remain on the table during budget discussions. Each departmental request will be examined closely, as will each non-tax related town revenue stream. As I stated in October, it remains my intention to propose a balanced budget to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. As of this writing, this budget is anticipated to be available on February 13th, 2015, as was previously committed. The proposed 2016 Town Administrator's budget recommendations will attempt to address the following goals, as I described in October: reducing costs, improving operations and service delivery, and creating a transparent budget document. The budget will attempt to address these goals within the four corners of the town charter, the consideration given to resources available for the town's operation. I will continue to keep the board informed of our budget development efforts in the coming weeks, as I know Selectman Messeri has as well through the financial planning team's efforts. We are in the heart of the budget development season. I thought it was important to note for the community and the board, again, where things stand in the process and some of the things that we're looking down at. Again, none of this is necessarily new information. It's been, I think, certainly identified in previous public discussions, but I wanted to brief the board in writing as we continue through this process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions, comments, board members?
We have a challenging
We do
fiscal
have a
year ahead of
very,
us.
very challenging year coming up, that's for sure. And there are some unknowns, and you know, clearly, with the changing governors, we won't have a governor's proposal probably until the end of February. We won't know exactly what state aid is going to be. Currently, in the revenue forecast, it's held flat. And there's potentially some risk with that, but it's really too soon to know exactly where we're going to be. We may get a hint of things at the MMA meeting. The governor is speaking first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
So he's not obligated to present his budget until the end of February.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Yule.
Yes. Did you read that Governor Baker released $100,000, $100 million?
Yeah, we weren't one of the towns.
Chapter 9.
No, Chapter 9? No, it didn't impact us.
Yeah, they're the list of towns that could receive the money. We
I didn't
weren't
see
one.
that, okay.
I did see the listing, and they were advised to expect notification, and I don't believe we received any such notification, consistent with what I believe Selectman Briscoe's identified.
There's another risk associated with some talk about making changes to the formula for Chapter 70.
Mhm.
That could go either way, I guess, for the town of North
Right.
Reading if they in fact implement that this current fiscal year. So we'll continue to monitor, and at a point where we have to make some hard decisions, we'll be prepared to make them.
Mr. Chairman, legal bills?
I
Move to approve legal bills for November 2014 in the amount of $7,419.85 as follows. Copeland and Page PC General, $5,097.85. Copeland and Page PC Labor, $2,106. Copeland and Page PC Water, $216 for a total of $7,419.85.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Yule. Any discussion? Michael, you had a question earlier?
All my questions have been answered, thank you.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Anyone here for public comment? Anyone left? Guess not. License renewals.
Mr. Chairman, I move to renew the following common victualler licenses to expire December 31st, 2015, subject to all regulatory department requirements. North Reading Main Operation LLC, DBA Dunkin' Donuts, Dairy Queen of North Reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by Mr. Yule. Any discussion?
Just as far as the Dunkin' Donuts one, we had already had it in our packet and already signed on it. This is just a formality to make sure we voted on it. So when we pass this around, you're just going to have one to sign.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? We have one other, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, I will ask Mr. Yule to read the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to renew the following Class 2 license to expire January 1, 2016, subject to all regulatory department requirements, North Reading Auto Sales.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Prisco. Mr.
Chair-
O'Leary?
Yeah, I would like the record to show that I will be recusing myself and not participating in the deliberations of the board in this particular matter because I have a family member who also holds a Class 2 license.
Any discussion?
Yeah,
Mr.
it says January 1. Isn't it usually December 31st?
For the Class 1, 2, and 3 licenses run on a January 1st renewal basis
Okay.
as opposed to December 31st.
We usually deal with them in December. This one's a little tardy.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstaining?
One abstain. Yep, abstain.
Is this the last of licenses, Mr. Gilbert, or do we still have some outstanding?
That's it.
That's it.
Yay.
Just one we're waiting for.
Sign it.
But they've complied, they don't need to have a hearing. There may be a couple with administrative things left to be done. If they don't comply, then we'll refer them back for a hearing, but they have another couple of weeks to comply.
We have appointments.
We do have one here.
Appointments.
Let's see, so we have a couple here.
We have
Mr. Chairman.
two committees.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I move to place in nomination the following name for reappointment as a member of the Historic Commission for a term to expire December 31st, 2017, Patricia Romeo.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, a second by Mr. Yule. Only one position open and one applicant.
I think we've already approved some of the.
There were others.
Yeah.
I think Mrs.
Yeah.
Romeo had to get her citizens' activity
Yeah,
report
she
in.
just
and all
was
to
late
be
getting
considered
stuff in.
As a matter of policy.
Further discussion?
No, sir.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is in favor of Mrs. Romeo being
Yes.
appointed,
Yes.
correct?
Right.
Yep.
This is unanimous. And we have an appointment. Services.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I move to place in nomination the following name for appointment as a member of the Youth Services Committee for a term to expire December 31st, 2017. Alex May, 23 Pleasant Street.
Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Mr. Yule. Any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous? Next item on our agenda is discuss Economic Development Committee.
It's me.
Mr. Prisco?
Yeah, I had asked for this to be on the agenda because I think I got a little bit confused. When I went back and looked at our goals, our objectives, and all the discussions we've had so far about economic development, I also noticed on our website that we had established, this is back when Mr. Delaney was on the board, an Economic Development Subcommittee, and we had done some work there. So I wasn't sure what our clear direction was. Are we going to establish an Economic Development Committee, or are we establishing an Economic Subcommittee? Because there was some notification in the paper. I have received a lot of interest. I have about 7 people ready to sign up, and I believe most of them are in with Karen, their citizens' activity request, to get this Economic Development Committee established. I'm working with Danielle. We've been working on a lot of stuff that we're going to try to come in and present to the board here relatively soon. But based on our objective, it's an Economic Development Committee, and so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, that it's an EDC, not a subcommittee. I just can't recall.
If I recall, I was on the board then as well. I think we were using them interchangeably, those names, subcommittee and just a committee. That's what I recall. I didn't know why we were using it interchangeably. But I don't think we were going to have 2 committees. I don't think we're going to have a subcommittee and then just the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah, I think the issue is basically, what are we going to call this committee? It's clear
Yeah.
that as part of our pursuing economic development, we were going to have a committee.
Our objective that we have discussed in strategic planning.
Do we have a charter written for this committee, or at least
I
initially?
thought we did. I thought we had.
We
We do
do.
have one previously written. I'd be happy to
Yes.
provide it to you, Selectman.
No, we do, and
We do.
and Danielle and I have that as well. I just want to make sure that when we send the information down to Barbara Stats to swear everyone in, are we swearing them as a subcommittee or as an Economic Development Committee?
This mission statement, what does that say?
Yeah, why don't we bring it up to the next agenda and refresh our memories as far as what our charge was at the time, make sure that's still what we want to do,
Mhm.
and then move forward with the appointments, because this has been languishing for a long
Yeah,
time.
and-
We really need to get it.
And what we did is,
Get it
if you look at our strategic plan, we actually took some excerpts from that charter and put it in our strategic plan, you know, looking at bladed properties, abandoned properties, and things like that. That's going to be part of the charge as well, so.
Now,
Mr. Yule?
now, this is a joint appointment, correct? The CPC and us?
Well, there's going to be members of the CPC, there's going to be some
I
members
don't
of,
think it's a joint.
No, it's not a joint appointment.
not a joint appointment, no, but it's going to be members of the CPC, there's going to be members of the residents in
The makeup
town,
of the
and myself.
Economic Development Commission was specified, or guidelines were given, I
Right.
think, when we originally set this thing forward. But we were going to make the appointment, but we were going to include
Right.
some elected members of other boards.
Okay.
Some town hall people, as
Okay.
core.
But we ran an ad for this?
Well, when
a
we-
Public notice, I
When
should
we
say?
did boards and committees, this was one of the things that we had in there.
Right, but
It was
right now, did we
The
do?
ad went out for all listed.
Oh, yeah, there
Oh,
Why don't we
okay,
just
okay, it
get
was a
the-
master thing.
Get the
Yeah.
charge to us
Yeah.
for the next meeting, and we could chit-chat about it then, and then
Right.
decide what we're going to do as far as moving forward.
Yeah, and we'll send the appointments with that meeting as well. At the next meeting, why don't we do that?
Why don't we take a look at it first, see if there's any modifications we made on it. Again, I haven't looked at it for
Yeah.
a year and a half or more, to be
Okay.
quite honest with
Yeah.
you.
Well, why don't we send in, at least so you have all the information, all the names and everything, and if we want to hold off on making the appointments, I'd rather not wait any longer, because these people have been waiting for us to get a meeting established, and I'd rather not hold off if we don't have to, because why wait another 2 weeks to
We
appoint
can-
people?
Why don't we be prepared to make those appointments after our discussion, if
Right,
in fact
if-
we reach a point where we've come to some conclusion.
Right, and if not, then fine, absolutely hold off on the appointments. But I'd rather not wait on putting them in your packet, so you can at least review
Well, you can put
the
them in the
name.
packet, what I'm saying is, you know, let's take a look at what we have, what we devised a couple of years ago or more.
It's
See
fair.
if it still fits, see if it makes sense to us, see if we want to modify it, see if we want to modify the membership, but, you know, those things, because again, honestly, I haven't looked at it for a year and a half or more. And then, once we cement that, then you move forward.
Okay.
So,
That's fair, that's right.
So we'll be getting the citizens' activity reports on them?
And again, I think the discussion that we
Yes.
have,
Yeah.
have at our next meeting may generate some additional interest. You know, so again, I'm not, believe me, I'm not trying to put the brakes on anything here, particularly in this particular case, but it's been dormant for so long. I think if we're going to stimulate some more interest and articulate what we're really looking for here, let's do that.
Mhm.
Give it another meeting after that. and then,
Sure.
You know, solicit some other additional interest and then make the appointments afterwards, you know, not that night. Again, I may be all wet, but
Whatever the
Well, I
board
guess we
wants to
could be
do.
prepared otherwise, either way. We can be prepared either way.
No, I think the point that Steve is making is in the process of making a discussion and laying out what the charge is gonna be.
it may
There
stimulate some
may
other.
be additional people.
Oh,
So let's
okay,
say the
okay,
committee's
okay.
limited to 7. Mike's got 9 applicants right now. What we're saying is in the process of discussion, we may get some additional applicants, and we would have made it maybe a different set of decisions.
Yeah, and in the meantime, if you
Yeah.
could forward those other applications to us
Yeah.
too, that'd be good.
Yeah, no,
Great.
they're sitting in Karen's desk. We were gonna have
Yeah.
them tonight, but we said, let's
Okay.
hold off to at least have a general discussion about the
Either,
EDC.
Email copies out to everybody, or
Oh, yeah.
put a copy in Dropbox under the committee folder,
Right.
and
I'll speak to
send
Karen.
an email, note out to everybody, so.
What's
they
nice
know.
is you're gonna see names that you've never seen before. I like that, you know, some new
Yeah.
people that are in the industry, so I think it's good.
And we're not going to make any calls at this point because we really won't know for sure exactly what we're going to be doing until the 26th, correct? Because we're
I'm
going to
sorry,
review
calls?
everything.
Mr.
I'm not gonna
O'Leary-
call them.
I think what Mr. O'Leary is recommending is that we review
We
the
can
charge.
review that. I'll do the
and
charge.
Get that defined,
Formulate
determine
that.
how many members this committee needs to be. We'll go back to history as to what was in
Right.
there.
Yeah,
And then we'll
that's
go
fair.
from there.
Because even, I mean, I'm confused on what the history was too.
But
It's been
I'm
so
not
long,
going to
so-
call anybody and give them a false sense of security,
Yeah.
thinking that.
You can call and interview everybody, you can call and ask, you know, why they're interested, do you want?
Well, I'd want to do that, but
If you prefer to wait, it appears that we won't make a decision next week.
right,
We will wait for the following
Yeah, follow
meeting.
because it might,
That's
if
fine.
there's a change, someone might say, I really don't want to do it.
That's fine.
Right, yeah,
We're
both
still,
ends of the stick.
Danielle and I are still continuing to meet. We're
Good.
still doing things. We're not holding up.
Keeping things going.
And I'll do an update on the JT Berry when we do old
Any
business.
other, Mr.?
Just a brief comment. I don't recall that when we advertised the vacancies, that we advertised the Economic Development Committee as a vacancy, but I do know that it's been posted on the front page of the town website for at least 6
Yeah.
months, if not longer.
Yeah, and we've been talking about it a lot in our meetings, so it's
And I
worth
recall,
getting out.
as a resident not working for the town,
Right.
seeing it, that it was advertised in the paper that we were soliciting.
And I think at one
So-
point, I think we had 2 applicants.
Yes,
Richard
that's what
Walden
we
was
had.
the only one
No,
that
one-
signed up,
Right.
but he signed up for the subcommittee. So when I started going through this, I said, well, we don't have a subcommittee, it's a
Mhm.
committee.
Yeah.
And then that's when we kind of, I
And
came to
as we
see
straighten this
Michael.
out, we'll take the posting that's on the website right now down and just make it more generic, so it's not
Once this
naming.
board decides what they want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion regarding that? Okay, moving on, Mr. Yule, I think, asked
Yes, I
to
did.
give an update.
Yeah, for the, I hate when I do this, the CAC Cable Advisory Committee. Just want to let you all know that they've been meeting since October 2014. They've been preparing to meet the demands of the upcoming contracts. As you may recall, the Comcast contract ends in January 2018, which means starting this month, they begin the 3-year renewal process. Verizon's contract ends on June 2018, and therefore in June 2015, we will begin the renewal process. On December 9th, they had a meeting with the Massachusetts Department of Telecommunications. They had an overview, were given an overview of the renewal process and expectations. They shared contract issues of similar towns to help the committee. They recommended that a townwide survey be done They ascertain expenses and and considerations, franchise fees. They gave examples of other towns, how they approach the cable network, and they expressed the points of concern. They suggested that during this process with both Verizon and Comcast, that they expressed concerns during the renewal process, quality issues, infrastructure needs, and future demands. They also suggested that they reach out to other public access companies for ideas. In their upcoming meetings, they do have on February 25th, NORCAM will be presenting their annual review to the committee. And on March 18th, they plan on having a meeting with the IT department here in North Reading to discuss the IT issues and the iNet solutions. As I said, they're going to plan on having a town-wide survey. And I just want to say that the members, to recognize them, Kerry Reddington, Ed Strobe, Ed Parrish, Mike Sprihar, and John Fiorello, are really delving into this to try to get the control that they, and manage it as best as they can, to make sure that the cable company, or the NORCAM, is able to run effectively, provide the town with a good cable station, and also protect the town on any issues that need to be settled. So I want to thank them. They've been
Just a little confused, because I think there are two separate issues here. One is the basic agreement as NORCAM as our cable network provider, and the contracts we have with Verizon and Comcast are related to the fee schedule, what they charge their customers, which are in our community, basically, what that fee structure is going to be, to, in fact, that money goes directly to NORCAM to provide the services. And second, what, additional, as part of a new contract, additional capital money might come forth, which will also allow us to expand and keep more in our cable network. The contract, or the agreement that the Board of Selectmen has with respect to the NORCAM board, which
Yeah.
is separate from the Cable
Correct,
Advisory Board, is a separate issue.
correct.
I'm not saying that.
The
Input
contract
from
with the cable
NORCAM
company is
is-
going to provide the revenue for
Right.
NORCAM,
Right.
and any
so,
capital improvements that are going to be made.
I guess, I think those things have to be maintained separately.
Yes, they would be. Yeah, did I guess, I'm not
Well,
sure.
you started talking about
You were
NORCAM,
blending.
so,
You were blending a bit.
a little blending there.
Yeah, I mean, you're correct. I mean, you have the contract with Verizon and Comcast with the town, and then you have the contract with NORCAM in the town. I understand that.
No, I see, I think I don't think the Cable Advisory Committee has anything to do with NORCAM at all.
Other than negotiating a revenue stream for them
Right.
and any capital equipment that may be
So
provided to them.
there is NORCAM has a board of directors.
That's
And there is
correct.
a cable committee, but they're not the same committee.
That's
Now, there may
correct.
be some
That's correct.
cross-membership.
Yes, there is. And,
Okay.
well, the Cable Advisory Committee is to us, all right? So, and if I recall, in the last meeting that we had, when they were before us, when I was on the board, the question was, should the recommendations be made by the Cable Advisory Committee, they should be made by the Cable Advisory Committee to us, and that NORCAM goes through the Cable Advisory Committee, not directly to us. They do come
NORCAM
before
has-
us and give us,
NORCAM has a board of directors.
They have their own board of
Yeah.
directors.
Yes.
They sign the
And
contract
there
with
is
us.
an agreement that this board made with the board of directors, basically, or the formation of NORCAM. And the reason why we did it was to guarantee that NORCAM continue to provide the services that the town was due. And if they were in violation of it, it gave us the authority to dissolve NORCAM, basically, as I recall, and create a new cable corporation, whatever you want to call it. So we had put that agreement in place to protect the community in case NORCAM was given the opportunity to provide cable service to the, local cable service to the community, would fulfill their duties and properly expend the money that we're being, it's actually being collected by the citizens of North Reading via their Verizon and Comcast bills. So the Cable Advisory Committee should be working on the forthcoming contract renewals for these two facilities, which would
Which is what,
involve-
yes, which is what they are
which would
doing.
involve an agreement that would settle on the rate. There's a range that can be charged. I think it maxes out at 5%. I think, as I recall, we might be at 4.5%.
Mhm.
I think that's what should be right on the bills. I don't know the
Right.
exact amount.
And again, as far as any
Right.
capital
And then
equipment,
capital.
the improvements that need to be made, whether it be through the network itself or through equipment, you know,
Right,
that
and
we
as
need
I
to work
recall-
closely with NORCAM, you know,
Right,
to assist in bringing
And-
those things, but the school department and town hall.
right.
And as I recall, it was also, at least the contract with Verizon had allowed us to do some leveraging to get some of the double poles removed
Right.
at a faster rate than they're currently being done, which might be another item that they consider there. as part of
You say get rid of some of the double poles, is that?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they can be an impediment sometimes.
Double
Yes.
poles tend to hang around for a long time.
Keep so many people hanging off of it.
And at the time, we were negotiating with, not with Comcast, but with, because the Comcast agreement was in place at the time with Verizon,
Mhm.
we had put some pressure on them to put some action into expediting the
Yeah.
removal.
I think one of
Yeah.
Mrs. Brooks' relatives was
Right.
here before us at one point in time.
Yes.
Yes,
My
right?
cousin.
Jill?
Jill
Jill
Reddish.
Reddish? Yeah, okay.
But that's great, I'm glad to hear that they're moving along with that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else you want to report on that?
On that, no.
Town administrators report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of matters that I'd like to review with the board. First, as been reported in the media recently, North Reading received approximately $7,000 in state grant funding for fire and life safety education for two programs, the Student Awareness of Fire Education and the recently established Senior Safe Program. Chief Warnick reports that the funds will be used for fire and life safety programs for all nursery and kindergarten students at all elementary schools, and to evaluate all third graders' knowledge and retention of the programs taught in kindergarten. They will also be used in seventh grade classrooms to teach fire behavior and heat transfer. Secondly was a copy of a grant application submitted to the Boston Region MPO for technical assistance to address traffic issues at two intersections in town, North Street at Central Street and Haverhill Street at Chestnut Street. Continue to keep the board advised if we are awarded the technical assistance provided through the MPO. Additionally, attached is a letter I received from MMA regarding our application for Municipal Innovation Award. We had nominated the the Community Impact Team, Competition was stiff, and unfortunately, we were not selected this year. Town has been advised that National Grid will be conducting selective tree removal along its east-west high-tension right-of-way. The majority of the work is anticipated to be on National Grid-owned land. However, in instances where the tree may be on privately owned land, they will be contacting the private property owner directly for permission to access the property. Fifth, Kinder Morgan has informed me on Friday that it is that it was, on Thursday, that it was in the process of setting up potential open house meetings for its pipeline. It has since made public a schedule of open houses that are going to be taking place, the nearest which is scheduled to occur on February 17th in Andover. There's been a lot of discussion amongst the members of the regional, northern Massachusetts.
Northeast, now I can't remember, Northeast Coalition, Pipeline Coalition.
That's correct. There's been quite a bit of discussion, and I'm not sure whether there'll be a push made to change the evening of that meeting because of the fact that it coincides with the school vacation week here in Massachusetts. I know that there's been certainly a lot of discussion about asking for consideration of a revised date. We had been approached and asked regarding scheduling the meeting here and in North Reading, and unfortunately, it seemed that our ability to provide an answer within a couple of hours and a guaranteed size facility wasn't quick enough, and so they elected to go forward with the meeting outside of Andover. And I expressed my frustration to Kinder Morgan for that.
And maybe, and the thought just occurred to me on that issue, New Hampshire has a week later vacation than we do. Okay, it's either a week later or a week before, and if we could have them possibly flip-flop, that might work. Do you think that?
It would certainly be a benefit. I have to tell you, no disrespect to Kinder Morgan, but when we've made suggestions and tried to work with them, it hasn't necessarily gone very far, but I'd be happy to share that with them.
Right, if we don't
It would make
ask-
more sense.
As
Yeah.
as I recall, what they did to us before was we were trying to come up with a schedule. Next thing, they published the schedule. It's like it was already done. This is the way it's going to be, and there's no ifs, ands, and buts. And so I'm happy that they're scheduling it somewhere else, and I hope Andover gives them a hard time about the whole thing, too, because they deserve it.
Just in relation to the Kinder Morgan, I know that they have been petitioning the town as far as gaining access to survey some of the town-owned land in relation to their proposed pipeline.
That's correct.
I don't know when it was going to be proposed to bring it before the board for consideration, but, I think we stated it back at the meeting several months ago. I think there are better alternative routes in relation to impacts on communities that they're not availing themselves of, and they're taking just the cheapest route out for themselves and having a significant adverse impact on communities. And I, for one, as a member of this board, am not going to vote to allow them any access to survey any property, town-owned property. I don't know what the rest of the members feel, but I feel more than happy to convey the message to Kinder
My
Morgan.
thought there, Steve, was that as soon as they would provide us with an actual GIS document, what they were proposing and where, then we should have a formal discussion where we can then in fact take a position.
Maybe I'm jumping the gun here.
Well,
But,
it's okay.
Yeah,
I have the
but
same feeling.
my
So-
inclination as to right now is to not to grant the access, but I'm certainly more than willing to take into consideration
Yeah,
anything they want to propose.
what I know is that they've made some changes, and I have no idea what they are, and I think
Yeah.
before
Well, it doesn't
we make a
impact
formal
North Reading.
decision,
Well, I wanted
It
to wait
would
till the
be-
FERC. I really wanted to
Right.
see what they did.
It
That
would
that was
be-
my,
it would be
my
prudent
belief
for us
all
to
along.
see what they propose.
Yeah.
If they,
M-
then we
Mr.
can take a formal
just-
position.
Right, Mr. Chairman, the only change that they've made so far really is going through New Hampshire. I haven't seen any changes on the lateral, have you, Michael?
But I have
So
yet
it
to
has no
see a
impact.
formal drawing of,
There's been some change in the town of Andover, but they're still cutting through Andover, just not to the same degree that they were proposing previously. But as far as the current proposal that they have does not impact or change their proposal of coming through North Reading.
To our knowledge, that's
To our
correct.
knowledge, that's correct.
With regard to the issue of the GIS data, they interestingly sent us a request to respond to a survey for their consultant, and we politely responded that we would respond to the survey as soon as they provided us the GIS data that we've been requesting for the past 6 weeks. And they indicated that they would provide it to us, so as soon as it's received, we'll be able to map it out and present it to this board and have the discussion that's been, of the request that's been submitted. And finally, with regard to my comments for tonight's town administrator's report, regarding the goals that I outlined in the fall, work does continue on the vehicle and cell phone policies. I anticipate that a cell phone policy will be submitted to the board at the next meeting, and that vehicle policy should be available at the following meeting. Excuse me. As I previously indicated, these policies will be factored into the town administrator's proposed budget to be submitted to the board on February 13th. And that concludes my comments for this evening. Thank you.
Any questions for the TA? You got it?
Just, if we could, maybe under old and new business, we can just chat about the budget schedule again, and when our Saturday date is. I have 2 dates in my phone for some reason. I know it's my mistake, so rather than me trying to dig back through, if you could just refresh me.
So the budget will be submitted by the town administrator to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee on February 13th, in advance of a Saturday meeting on Saturday, February 28th.
28th, thank you.
Is that what I have?
Did you say February 28th?
28th, that's correct.
That's our first meeting.
The first meeting and the largest of the meetings from what I gathered.
That's the Saturday morning.
That's the Saturday.
Morning, yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's what I had too.
I didn't have that one. Okay.
Okay, old and new business. Mr. O'Leary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to start up again by wishing everybody a happy new year, board members and community at large. Healthy, happy, and prosperous one, I hope. Secondly, I'd like to again acknowledge the swearing in of Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito, and hopefully they have a sympathetic ear towards municipalities, and I think one of the good things that we can count on at least is that Governor Baker did serve on the Board of Selectmen in Swampscott. Hopefully that will help out the municipalities in their effort to meet the pressures that we have here, so looking forward to some good news maybe in relation to how the allocation of resources come about. And finally, Mr. Chairman, just the recent transcript noted that nomination papers are going to be available in the coming week or so, and just to let people know that it is my intention to pull nomination papers, get the requisite signatures, and file them for re-election to the member of the board, as a member of the board, and I would encourage other people to do the same. Competition is good, discussion is healthy, and I know Mr. Fode is also up, he's not here this evening, and I hope he chooses to do the same. So just to let people know that it is my intention at this time to seek re-election to the board. That's all. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. O'Leary. Mr. Yule?
At this time, you mean, can it change?
My mind can always change. This is without consultation with my wife, for the last 30 some odd years, has never been in favor of this whole thing. But anyway, again, if I lose, it's not like you're losing a paying
Right.
job.
Well, I'm glad that you are running. You've always have been a credit to the community and all your service. So thank you for stepping forward once again. And again, I hope Joe does the same thing. Let's see, I want to say Happy New Year to everybody, even though it's 12 days into the year, but it's off, as the chairman said, it's our first meeting, and I'm looking forward for North Reading continuing to progress as vibrantly as it has been. Now, I have 2 things I want to bring up and share with you. It has to do with snow removal. I want to thank those along Route 28, Main Street there, who have cleared their sidewalks. There were about 5 locations, but unfortunately I can only remember 2, which is the McLean family at 132 Main Street. They do it every year. And Greenbrier Estates also made sure that their sidewalk was clean. And that's without blocking the ends of the abutting properties. But it's not fair to those who clear their sidewalks all the time when even though we've only had a little bit of snow, the debris from the roadway is pushed onto the sidewalk. Snow is there, it turns to ice, and it's very uneven, and it's very hard for those who use the sidewalks to get to places they want to get. But, we haven't had a lot of snow, but whatever little has fallen has remained. 3 years ago, the North Reading Chamber of Commerce requested that the fines be rescinded on the promise they would take care of it, and they did not. The businesses are not clearing the sidewalks, and unfortunately, the town has been guilty of it as well on some of the streets, leading to the schools, as a matter of fact. The TA has put notices into the transcript, I think 3 weeks in a row or so. There was one this past week, again. It seems like that they're just not listening, not paying attention. They could care less with what we say. So my request to the board tonight is to issue instructions to the TA to enforce the bylaw 158-9 using section D from here on. I think that that's something we can do, we should do. It's at the beginning. And there are people that use those sidewalks, and mainly seniors, and I don't mean seniors in high school, I mean seniors of my age. So that's what I think we should do, because they've had 3 years now to do what the North Reading Chamber of Commerce said they needed to do. They've had 3 years, it's a long time. So that's a request that I have of the board.
Anyone want to comment? Well, I think it's a reasonable request, given that it is a town bylaw. So, Michael, do you have any suggestions on how we might approach that to provide notice?
Generally, I'm going to presume, not having had a detailed discussion, that this has been complaint-based in the past, that is a location identified and forwarded to the police department, who enforces it, and they issue a notice of violation. That's what I'm going to suppose has happened in the past, because that's what generally happens in other communities. Certainly, if there are specific areas, as you've identified, we can try to contact those residents.
Or businesses.
Or businesses
only.
Yeah.
Businesses, yes,
Yeah.
excuse me. I'd have to look again at the bylaw in terms of the minimum requirements. And by that, I mean how much snow.
Right.
I know that if we go out there now, there isn't going to be a whole lot
Right,
of
right.
snow on the ground. But there has been, after the past couple of storms, there's probably been 2 inches after each, I think.
Yeah.
We can note them, certainly for the police department to keep an eye on, and to
Right.
issue orders if they observe them to be in non-compliance after the next storm.
Right.
That's probably the best that I could suggest for those particular locations.
Excuse me. The bylaw is not complaint-driven, it's observatory-driven. So if they see that it hasn't been done, then the bylaw is to be enforced. So it's not complaint-driven. You don't have to wait for someone to say, they didn't do
Right.
it. Do the sidewalk.
No disagreement here. I'm supposing that in terms of enforcement, that's generally what's driven it. What I would suggest, to be candid with you, is it might be best for me to consult with the police chief and to develop
I'm all for that.
an enforcement strategy, and then bring it back for the board for discussion, because I'm sure he's balancing the resources against traffic accidents or other calls for service that may come in. And I know that there's been a history of some successful enforcement in the past as well. So I'd ask the board for the opportunity to report back on that, and maybe perhaps have it as an agenda item if the board would like.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Well,
welcome your feedback.
yeah.
What does the bylaw specifically call for? Is it a tiered offense? and
It's a tiered
warning?
offense, it's a tiered
A warning?
offense. It's, I'm forgetting the numbers, but I think it's, you get a notice, and then you get a warning, then then there's $100 fine, and I don't know if it's 150 or 200. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it is tiered, okay? But they get a warning, a written warning, and I believe it is written. And then they, if they don't comply, for example, if they get the warning on the 2 days after the storm and they don't clear it, then they would be subject to a fine, or the next storm that they know they have. And it says reasonable amount of time to do it, and that, of course, that's subjective. subjective thing, and of course, I mean, I think that everybody understands reason as far as if it's a big storm or something like that, you can't just do it right away. But it is tiered as far as the process is concerned.
Well, Jeff, from your roaming around town or running around town, about how many violations did you see?
I would say, well, I mentioned, I thought there were 5 locations that were cleared. Okay, now, it's kind of deceiving sometimes because one establishment cleared the sidewalk, but they cleared their sidewalk and they blocked everybody else off. Okay, so that's, I don't want to name names here, so they just blocked, and a few of them do that. And so you can walk on the sidewalk, but then you got to climb a whole mountain of snow to get to the other side. So, and then the bylaw addresses that too, you're not allowed to do that either. So, but to answer your question, I don't know how many businesses are on 28, but if only 5 done it, have cleared it, okay? There's many more that have not.
So I think the town administrator's right. We've had rain, most of it's probably melted away, although
Yeah.
there may be some piles because people have piled the snow.
Yeah.
So we let him have the opportunity to have a discussion with the police chief
Yeah.
and see, come back to the board with how they might manage that. And next time we have a reasonable snowfall,
Yeah.
we'll execute the whatever
Yeah.
the police chief is
Yeah, and-
recommending on how to approach it. Because it is a resource issue. And yet, town meeting approved this bylaw, so I think it's our obligation to find a way of enforcing it or changing the bylaw, which is
Yeah.
going to happen until the next
Yeah.
town meeting.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Come up with another method.
yeah.
Yeah, so, okay.
Anything
Also,
else, Jim?
yeah, also, the, Ed Caney sent a letter to the editor regarding stipends for the administrators. And he said that it was headlined, "Stipends for Administrators Send a Wrong Message." It was in the transcript of 12/18/2014. And, I realize that the administrators put in a lot of hours and then some. But so do many other employees. The role of the administrators play is important and sometimes key. But so do teachers when they go home and correct papers and or do excessive work. And it could go on, I could go on, but I'm not going to do that. I do not wish to overstate their efforts or try to diminish anything that they do, but I do not recall seeing in the article, nor has it come across my desk, that this was going to be done. Now, this is on the school committee level, and it's there under their domain, I understand that, but it never seemed to come across through our discussions. In light of the $332,000 change orders that we're getting, that was reported in December 24 transcript, it becomes concerning that we are not carefully managing our funds. When funds were passed for the new high school, we did not anticipate having to ask for more money from the property owners, but it happened. When the town approved those additional funds, I don't think adding a stipend to anyone for the hard work they were about to do was a line item. The message by Mr. Caney had to do with fairness. He appears to be correct. Everyone had to work extra hard during the transition to make it go smoothly, and they continue to be successful at doing that. But there is more than one message. It is the careless spending of people's money. Every advocate for education should be questioning this stipend. This takes away from the students. We are entering a budget season right now, and we need to look at the school budget very carefully. If they have the excess money to give these stipends, and they come back and they're concerned about not having enough money to support other programs, it doesn't seem to to be right. And I'd like to see that the school board or even ourselves, be careful on how we spend other people's money. Again, I don't want to diminish the hard work that they did on their doing, but they get paid well to do what they do. So I just want to leave it at that. Thank you.
That's it? Okay, Mr.
Well,
Prisco?
I just want to make sure Jeff's clear on one thing. The money that related to the stipends has nothing to do with the secondary school building
No,
project.
I think he came around.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah, it's school committee.
right, but the money, you bring out the change orders, and I've heard some other people talk about change orders in this town. There isn't a school building project in the Commonwealth that has been built without change orders. It is part
It's
of the
true.
process.
Wow.
And, I've gone to not as many meetings probably as Mr. O'Leary's been to, because he's on the committee, but they put a tremendous amount of time and effort in on every one of those change orders. And they're trying their best to make sure that the money is being spent in the best interest of our students, in the community, and the school building project. So I would be careful with saying, the money's being spent, I can't remember the exact term you used,
Yeah.
but
And I'm sorry, Mike, if
I
I-
think he did a poor job of presenting what he was trying to say.
Oh, thank you.
I
appreciate
don't think
that.
he was attacking the
You
fact
weren't
that there were change orders. What he was saying was it was a tremendous, I think what he's trying to say, there's a tremendous expense on the side of building this school, which our citizens are paying for. And yet, in the school budget themselves, they found money to provide
Okay.
Yeah.
stipends.
It has nothing to do.
I'm not going to get into
I-
the stipend discussion, but I just want, because I wasn't,
Yeah.
maybe I got
I don't think he was
confused in the
attacking.
discussion.
No, not at all.
I just want to be clear on
He
that.
wasn't
Okay.
very clear on what he was trying to say. Michael?
Just another thing, though. I think it would be appropriate, and maybe you've already had the discussions on the financial planning team in relation to the articles in the transcript and stipends and what the school committee's process
They're
and
about,
determine.
they're probably gonna get reminded at our next meeting when they present their budget numbers and they have a gap that's bigger than big.
Yeah, so I think that's the appropriate forum to start the
Yep.
initial discussion as to how they formulate the decisions as to offer stipends. And again, stipends do not factor into retirement benefits. They're generally an additional amount of money, like a bonus type thing, as opposed to factoring into the base salary, which is a good thing.
And by the way, the town side has stipends built in the budget too.
Yeah.
Well, I understand how stipends and their
Right.
purpose, and they have a value, okay?
Yeah, and these
I
particular
understand
stipends,
that.
I don't think were built in. They just, I think, unilaterally decided to grant
Yeah.
stipends, and that's fine. And you're right, Mr. O'Leary, it's the right discussion. It's
So
probably
I
not
think the
actually.
forum is probably there.
Yeah.
Do they anticipate anything going forward in the current fiscal year?
Yep.
Maybe make a statement one way or the other, and then, move on.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into a big elaborate discussion on a couple things that I'd like to bring up. But we gave our strategic plan presentation to the department heads last week, and I thank your town administrator for allowing me to come in. We were only there about 45 minutes, just went over the objectives and the progress assessments, and that was it. We really didn't have any time for any feedback, but while I was preparing for the meeting, I did notice one thing, because I've talked to a few moms and dads in town. There's a big concern over this whole opiate addiction issue. And now that you see with the new governor in place, one of his big initiatives is going to be this whole opiates thing. But I also think we missed a target opportunity in our strategic planning to have an objective in there to support our chief in the efforts in town with the community impact team as well, associated with the opiate addiction. I think as a board, we should stand up and create an objective that ties into that, because this is getting so out of hand, and it's our young men and women that are dying far too early because of these opiate addictions that lead into heroin use. And I would ask the board that maybe in a future meeting that we come up with an objective that we all agree on. Maybe we can discuss it during budget time when we have the chief in here with his staff, but I think we should establish an objective in our strategic plan.
It has been the subject matter of the CIT's discussion for the past two meetings. The chief is extremely passionate over the problem that they see that the community doesn't necessarily see.
I've been hearing more and more.
Yeah, when he starts
it's sad.
rattling off some of the stats of what's gone on the past year,
I think part of it's gonna be communication and education, and I think that should be part of the strategic plan, is to, get the chief
Yeah.
out front.
No, I don't disagree
Yeah,
with Mike's.
Yeah,
what he said.
but I think, but conversely, I don't want to say as though we're helpless. What can we do? We're gonna need some guidance and some assistance in helping to formulate some sort of a plan to assist, law enforcement, school department, everybody that's
Yeah.
involved here.
Yeah.
Youth
services,
director,
right.
so what do we really need to commit to, other than, platitudes here? And what do we really need to commit?
Finding some additional funding for the
Well-
CIT's programs that are focused on those issues.
And if that's important to the board, we should have it as an objective to make it a priority
Again, we
to
need
support
to-
those efforts.
I need help quantifying it,
Yep.
what can we realistically do, what's our goal, what's our objective, that whole thing, but, pie in the sky, but, what can we realistically do and commit to get it going,
Well, how about this? Maybe we should have the CIT come in and just present on this particular issue. And then maybe that'll help us
I'll
formulate.
take it back to the CIT.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they're ready,
Oh, I'm not putting you on the
whatever
But I
spot.
don't disagree with adding something to our objectives, because it is a problem. I mean, it's a
It is.
national problem, it's not
It
a
is.
North Reading
But-
problem. It's an area problem based on
Yeah.
heroin addiction that's going on.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it hasn't hit our school children yet, but.
No, but when
It's
you-
a big problem.
When you see that we made the decision to outfit our police and our fire with those, that new NORCAM, and they're using it more and more,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So we found a solution to keep them alive, but it hasn't fixed the problem.
Right.
So,
The other thing that has been said is that the people that are addicted to heroin, right, are also, and their friends, are carrying Narcan. So they're overdosing, recovering, the following week, what do? They overdose again.
Yeah.
Sooner or later it catches up with them,
well,
someone isn't there to
Yeah.
revive them, but,
I just put it out there for thought.
It's a big problem.
And I'd like
think
us to do
that
it.
For us to be, at least acknowledge that it's an issue and that we're.
Again,
prepared
the
to
governor,
provide
the
support
governor
as
has made it a highlight in his inaugural address, hopefully there'll
Yeah.
be some state monies available that we can
Yeah.
avail ourselves of, and if we can be in front of it, all the better.
I would like to see it as an objective, and if we can make that happen, I appreciate it. Just quick update on the JT Berry since we met last. Michael and I have had some teleconferences with DCAM, getting the legislative documentation together. Michael has drafted it up. It's gone through our legal counsel. We reviewed it with a few members at DCAM. We've got all the comments back and forth, and it's ready to go forward to Representative Jones to get into the legislation schedule. We've also received the final documentation on the environmental, Phase 2. Nothing has changed since Weston and Sampson was here in our executive session discussion. But that's now been loaded up, I believe, in Dropbox.
It looks to be done today, yes.
So you shouldn't see anything new in there. We're going to make sure we send a copy off to DCAM as well, so they have a copy for their files.
So, excuse me, Mike, so they finished phase 2, it's all done, and
The presentation, when it was
Yeah,
given
they made
here
the
in executive
presentation.
session, it was already done at that point. So what was reviewed to us in verbally reviewed to us,
Final reports being
the final report now, signed off by Weston and Sampson certifying the Phase 1 and Phase 2. That is all done, all complete.
Did that have to be filed with DCAM too?
It's part of the process,
It's part of
yes.
the
Yes.
Yeah.
good news.
Michael, just a quick update. It doesn't have to be this evening. Can I get another update on the direct deposit for the veterans' benefits when you have an
Sure.
opportunity? I'd appreciate that. I don't want us to lose sight on that. Last thing I have is, people probably been driving around town seeing the nice, neat signs for the maskers. The North Reading High School Maskers group is putting on the play this year as Peter Pan. My daughter is actually a member of the cast, and they've been working very hard. So I told her, she had asked me if I could come tonight and just make people aware that the ticket sales are going to be going on starting on January 26th, every day from 11 to 4. We actually have a ticket booth now at North Reading High School, so you can go right inside, right into the ticket booth. There's also information regarding the ticket sales on the North Reading Masters website. They're going to be doing a few daily, they're going to be selling them daily from 11 to 4. But they are going to have 2 evenings. They're going to sell tickets on January 26th and February 2nd from 6 to 8.
You should mention that with the new auditorium, they have the opportunity to see the
Right.
The facility.
new facility. Plus, the seats are reserved.
That's correct.
Very, very.
And that was one of the last things I was going to say. There is assigned seating.
Can't take your thunder.
No, I'm glad you mentioned it. No, I'm glad you, I probably would have forgotten if you didn't say
Reserved
it.
seating,
But
huh?
it is assigned seating. So I think that's a wonderful thing too. So people don't have to arrive, 2.5 hours early to get your seats.
They have to
But
arrive
I
2.5
encourage you
hours early
to
get
go and buy the
parking
seats
spaces.
early. But I think you buy the seats early. I assume the earlier you buy them, the better seats you're gonna get. But I will give a little tip to people: the closer you sit up towards the stage, the more leg room you have to the seat in front of you. Because it's a curved auditorium, obviously, you're gonna be a little closer to the person in front of you as you sit higher. So that's the, Mr. Gilberto, is it possible for you to post this in Town Hall somewhere? At our information desk, or maybe in an area where people would see the most traffic? If I could leave this with
Right, at the
Jane,
It's already
information.
down there.
if you could add another one?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't see one on this side of the
You know,
building.
it's,
so-
It's,
And I think you
at the front.
mentioned it,
Up
Mike,
front.
but the fact that they're running it 2 weekends, which is a little
Yes,
unusual, too.
the dates are on there, and
Yeah.
actually, it's January 30th, 31st, and February 6th and 7th.
right. And Mike, I have to say, it's glad to see you doing it this year and not me.
Um,
What part does your daughter have, if I may ask?
She is one of the boys.
Good,
Yeah.
cool.
So, and the last thing I want to say is, I'm an avid Patriot fan, as you can see, I had the tie on tonight. My voice is a little crackly because I went to the game on Saturday evening, and I'm finally getting it back, but I'm looking forward to losing it again on Sunday. So, I'm excited, and go Patriots. So, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So, I think I mentioned this at the year close, but I want to thank all our volunteers, and hopefully we can get some more volunteers, because North Reading wouldn't be North Reading without our volunteers.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
We're looking for more volunteers. We have a lot of committees that have unfilled seats, and I would encourage everybody to join. We are meeting, Michael Gilberto, myself, and Joe Fode Wednesday morning in the town of Andover. I think it's at 7:30, right? That's correct.
Breakfast meeting?
Oh, nice.
Water's on them?
It's at their town hall, right? That's correct.
Don't drink over.
Hopefully to try to bring this water agreement to some form of foreclosure. And the venue's changed a little bit. There'll be 2 members of their Board of Selectmen there, Alex Vispoli and their chairman, who have been meeting with Dan, what's Dan's last name?
Kowalski.
Kowalski, along with their town administrator. And that's all that I have. So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Yule. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
All right.
Thank you.